In this video, we're going to go over the final steps to create a table in SQL. So for step 7, we're going to identify domain specifications. So basically, these are going to be a list of possible values that can be used to be able to enter into a specific column. So for example, on finish, maybe we wanted to restrict the types of finishes that are provided in that column. We can use set and then provide cherry, natural ash, and so on. And so if the customer were to insert a new product, only these finishes would be allowed. Alternatively, we could use enum that would have some kind of order implied to it. So for example, with a rating, we could use enum to rank G, PG, and so on from the lowest rating to the highest rating. For step 8, we're going to go ahead and now create our tables. So we now have all the code for the customer table, for the order table, for the product table, and the order line table. If we go ahead and just copy all this code and run it, it will create these 4 tables in our database. Additionally, on top of creating our tables, we want to create associated indices. These allow us to speed up the retrieval of data. Now, by default, the primary key is automatically going to be indexed because this is a value that is constantly queried through primary key foreign key pairs, and so we want to speed up the retrieval of that. If we want to index other columns, then we can create those indices as well. Now, the benefit of creating indices is drastic. For example, there was one query that would take me about 30 seconds to run. I created indices on the columns that I was constantly querying, and it reduced the 30-second query time down to less than a second. So to create a unique key index, we say create unique index, and then the name of the index, and then the column and table that this index is going to apply to. So we say on the customer table, specifically the customer ID column. If we wanted to create a unique index on multiple columns, we do the same thing except for have a comma separated column, such as you can see here on the next line. To create a secondary non-unique key index, we can say create index and then the name of the index on the table and then the column specifically related to that table. So now what I want you to do is go ahead and run the queries to create those 3 tables. In order to do this, you'll want to come to the server. You can click on this hamburger menu, and then you can toggle execute all queries, which will run all the queries that are listed here, or you can execute selected queries, which will just run the current query that you are selected on, so wherever your cursor is or whatever you currently have highlighted. So we'll go ahead and execute all queries. I have specific keyboard commands that I can run, and I'll be using those from now on. So to run all queries, I use Control-Shift-Enter, or on a Mac, Command-Shift-Enter. And to run a selected query, it's Control-Enter or Command-Enter. So I'll go ahead and hit Control-Shift-Enter, and you'll notice that 3 queries were successfully run. I'll go ahead and move this back over. Query 1 shows that employee table was created. Query 2 shows that the course table was successfully created. And query 3 shows that the certificate table is successfully created. Another thing you'll want to do is come over here to the ERD tab and see if it has successfully created the entity relationship diagram as you were expecting. So this is what we call a reverse engineered model that is basically built based on the tables that exist in the database. Now, if you ran into any errors as you were creating these tables, you'll want to go ahead and fix these table errors and then run them again. Let's say, for example, you created the employee table successfully and then had something fail on the course table. Make sure that you're not using the command to run all executed queries. Just run the queries after where it failed. So for example, if the employee table successfully ran but the course table didn't, and then I fixed the code here, I could go ahead and just run this query instead of the entire sheet.